DEBx, amplifying voices, accelerating change.
Please help me welcome to the stage, David Schwartz.
Do you know how people feel just before they have a heart attack? Well, most report they feel just fine. On November 9th, 2011, I had what my doctors call a severe cardiac event, aka a heart attack. Only I had no clue what was going on. I guess it just wasn't my day to die. You see, prior to this, you'd have to hit me over the head with a 2x4 to get me to even listen to anything about heart disease or heart attacks, because we had no history of any of this in my family. So I knew absolutely nothing about heart attacks or heart disease. Now, if that's you, listen up, because regardless of your family history, our ancestors didn't consume the crappy diets and suffer the crazy stress levels we've had to deal with in this country over the past 50 years. One evening, I had something that started out as a tiny little tickle in the center of my chest. It came and went a few times, and then it came back, and it got steadily worse and worse. It eventually turned into something that felt like a heat lamp shining out from the center of my chest, about the size of a grapefruit. I tried several different things to reduce the pain. I even threw down some ibuprofen tablets, and thankfully that did the trick. The pain went away in about half an hour. So I went to bed and fell asleep, feeling fine again. The next day, I decided to swing by the doctor's office, have him take a look at me. When I got there, I told the receptionist I'd had a strange pain in my chest the night before, and I thought someone might want to take a look. So after hooking me up to an EKG machine, they decided to send me to the ER. They took my vitals, my blood pressure, my heart rate, my temperature were all perfectly normal. They drew some blood to test, and they left me alone for a while. At one point, that funny little feeling came back, and I called for the doctor, and she came in. She took my blood pressure. She handed me a few baby aspirin, and then she started rushing around. Suddenly, there were 5 people in there, and they were poking and prodding and sticking in IVs, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And the doctor said, well, I'm a little concerned, but don't worry. I'm like, what was my blood pressure? And the nurse said, 225 over 110, and I thought, ooh, that's kind of high. Well, they decided to get me into the operating room as soon as possible, so they put me on a chopper and flew me 7 miles across town to another facility. When I arrived, guess what? My vital signs were all perfectly normal. So they put off my visit into the operating room until 11 o'clock the next morning. So they took me in, they did their thing, and after that, they took me back to my room. 3 cardiac docs came and sat down in front of me. They informed me that my LAD artery, also called the widowmaker, was 95% blocked. They inserted a stent to open it back up. Thank you. And the other 2 coronary arteries were 20% blocked. They told me some other stuff, but what stuck in my brain was they kept saying, you're a really lucky guy. Like, okay. But then they said that the only reason I was still alive was because when the clot hit my LAD artery, it was able to move on through without causing my heart to go into fibrillation. But that's not what I wanted to come here and talk to you about tonight. See, I got curious how this happened and why nobody seemed to have a clue that anything might be wrong. I mean, it's not like your arteries get clogged like that overnight. It takes years. So I did some research to find out why, what really causes this to happen. And I discovered some interesting and unexpected answers. And that's what I want to share with you now. In his book, The Great Cholesterol Myth, Dr. Stephen Sinatra cites these 4 factors as the primary culprits leading to heart disease and ultimately heart attacks: inflammation, oxidative stress, dietary sugars, and physiological stress. But actually, when you boil it all down, it really is only one thing: oxidative stress. Oxidative stress refers to the presence of chemical compounds in the blood that contain free radicals, and they cause oxidation. They attach themselves to little nooks and crannies in your artery walls, and they cause small burns. and that's kind of like what pool acid does when it gets on your skin. Naturally, these tiny burns get inflamed, and the immune system does what it's supposed to do. It creates a scab over them, and that results in plaque buildup, because plaque is just a scab on the inside of the artery wall. And what causes most of this oxidative stress? These two highly oxidative hormones that are dispersed through our bloodstream, insulin and cortisol. Now, insulin's a hormone that allows our body to either use glucose, which is sugar that comes from carbohydrates, or store it for future use. Insulin helps our blood sugar levels keep from getting too high or too low. And as many of you probably know, insulin levels have become problematic in most populations recently because of our poor quality modern diets. This has resulted in an alarming increase in diabetes across all age groups and demographics. Insulin and blood sugar levels can in fact be improved through disciplined dietary changes, mainly by eliminating sugars and simple carbs. And that means cutting out most junk foods and pretty much anything that comes in a bag, bottle, box, can, or tub. As I said, it's a disciplined diet. Now, cortisol is a hormone that's produced when we get stressed, which is why it's called the stress hormone. Believe it or not, several controlled medical studies have shown that cortisol levels in the bloodstream can actually be reduced by as much as 50% by, wait for it, different kinds of meditation. Meditation also reduces your heart rate and blood pressure. Now, I've been meditating for most of my life, but I had not been doing it much at the time prior to my heart attack, because in fact, the year prior to my heart attack was the most stressful year of my life. And I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling really stressed, meditation just doesn't quite seem very appealing. Go figure. My advice to everybody is just do it. Now, stress causes the body to pump out excessive levels of cortisol. And this is very likely to lead to inflammation and what? Subsequent plaque buildup. I believe this was the biggest single factor contributing to my clogged arteries and my subsequent heart attack. Now, 3 tests that Dr. Sinatra recommends getting done annually to see how our heart health is doing are the following: cardiac calcium CT scan, a high sensitivity C-reactive protein blood test, and blood cholesterol tests that include LPA and ApoB. Oddly enough, most doctors do not include these tests as part of routine healthcare, regardless of your risk for heart disease, or even if you've had a heart attack. And that really surprised me. Fortunately, all you need to do is ask that these tests be done, and they'll write you a script for it. In summary, oxidative stress produced by hormones like cortisol and insulin causes arterial inflammation. And that causes scabs, called plaque, to build up that eventually clog our arteries. When our coronary arteries get too clogged, we become a heart attack waiting to happen. And when it does, about 1/3 of the people fall over dead, 1/3 suffer from medium to long-term medical disabilities, and 1/3, like me, are patched up with stents and sent home. It's worth mentioning that in most people, blood cholesterol levels have little, if any, impact on any of this. Dr. Sinatra explains this very well in his book, and many other studies back this up as well, although most doctors in America will tell you otherwise. Now, improving your diet by cutting out sugars and simple carbs can reduce insulin levels, while regular meditation practices can reduce cortisol levels. And these are 2 simple lifestyle choices that can help reduce your likelihood of having a heart attack by quite a bit. So ask your doctor if a reduced sugar diet and regular meditation are right for you. The best part is you don't need your doctor's permission because no prescription is needed. Thank you very much.